and welcome to this week's video. Do you struggle with browns? Does your fur look flat or your shadows look muddy no matter what you do? The problem probably isn't your brushwork, it's your colour mixing. And today I'm going to show you why one unexpected colour completely transformed this tabby cat painting. Let's jump straight into the video. Number 1, the problem with mixing brown. Most painters, when they see brown fur, reach for burnt sienna, burnt umber or raw umber. These browns are an obvious choice, and I have burnt umber on the palette I used for this painting. But using and relying on brown alone from a tube will give you a very flat painting. Mixing red, yellow and a bit of blue can result in a painting that looks like mud, dirty browns. The aim is to create an object that looks alive rather than something that looks brown. The problem isn't your technique or your brushwork, it's that you're painting the idea of a brown rather than what's actually in front of you. Real fur is not just brown. There are always other colours going on in there as well. So today we're going to look at exactly what that is and why the fix involves a colour you probably wouldn't expect. Number 2, what dead colour actually means. When we say a colour looks dead, we mean it has no life, no vibration. It sits flat on the canvas and doesn't convince the eye. The technical reason for this is that it has no chromatic bias. It's just a neutral with nothing pulling it in any direction. Every colour in nature, even the darkest shadow or the most muted grey, has a temperature. It is either leaning warm or leaning cool. For a painting to be successful, it needs a balance of warm and cool temperatures in it. Warm colours pull towards red-purple, red, orange, yellow and yellow-green. Cool colours pull towards blue, green-blue and purple-blue. The problem with brown straight from the tube is that it will have a temperature bias, so my burnt umber has a warm leaning. If I use this brown and only this brown, I will have a painting that is too warm. Overly warm paintings will have a muddy appearance. If you choose a brown which is cooler like raw umber and only use this, you'll end up with an overly cool painting and it will look chalky. The colours that look most alive in a painting are nearly always neutrals that have been mixed with intention, where the painter has decided whether a shadow is a warm brown or a cool brown, a green grey or a blue grey. This is what separates a painting that looks observed from one that looks painted by formula. So before we even pick up a brush, the first question to ask yourself is this brown warm or is it cool? That one question changes everything about how you mix it. Number 3, what I see in this cat. Let's now have a look at the reference photo. The first thing that's really important to understand is the light we're dealing with. This is a warm light. The shadows on the floor suggest this. I am guessing it is natural light because the shadows are not dark enough for artificial light. This makes it slightly easier. Also, we have ambient light to contend with that is bouncing around in the room. So again, this affects what we see. At this point, I would say it's easier to print out your reference photo. You'll see your temperature shifts a lot easier than if you try to work from a backlit screen. At first glance, your brain tells you that you see brown, but closer observation reveals much more colour. What we're actually seeing is a whole family of related neutrals, all with different temperature biases. In the light areas of the fur, around the eyes and some of the markings on the head, there is a lot of warm ochre and yellow. This is where the light is hitting, and it's reading almost golden in places. As we move into the darker markings, they seem almost black. You could actually paint this in the limited Zorn palette. It would work if done correctly. But if I add colour, it will really come alive. I based the painting around the 2 complementaries of green and red, and yellow and purple. If I mix a dark red and a dark green together, this will give me my black. If I mix a yellow and a mid-purple together, this will give me a brown. Remember, mixing complementaries or opposite colours always gives me brown. I therefore have a very strong, warm, cool palette to work with. Number 4, the power of green. Let's now have a look at my palette. I am using cadmium yellow light, yellow ochre light, transparent yellow oxide, cadmium red, alizarin crimson, transparent red oxide, viridian, burnt umber, ultramarine deep and titanium zinc white. I have mixed up a few other colours, a black red and a black green, a purple that leans red, 2 oranges and 2 other greens. Green features very heavily in my dark and mid-tone mixing. For my really dark blacks, I am using this black red and my viridian. When my dark values are warmer, I push it more red. When it's cooler, I push it more green. For my mid-tone areas, I can start with my base burnt umber. Using this as a starting point makes it easier than trying to mix from scratch, but I am always adjusting this colour. If I want to lighten, I start with yellow ochre light. If I then need to knock out the warmth, I add my viridian. If I need to push it redder, I will use this orange red. If I want it more of a caramel brown, I add this colour. Notice this top row are all my warms. If I want to make my brown cooler, I can use any of these greens or my viridian. Each one will give my brown a slightly different hue. I can get some really cool darks by mixing this purple with my green or my viridian, and if I add white to this, it gives me some really cool greys. For my shadows, there's a lot of red and green in that colour. Remember, white will cool down and desaturate any mix I add to it, so if you are aiming for a warmer light colour, add either the yellow ochre, my warmest light, or my cadmium yellow light, still a warm light but cooler than my yellow ochre. If you're still not light enough, then add your white. When you look at your browns, ask yourself, what colour can I see in my brown? Is it warm or is it cool? Notice in my final painting how it moves from warm browns to cool browns across the whole piece. This is what gives my final artwork life. Number 5, when to break your own palette rules. Finally, I want to talk about this briefly. If you have watched any of my other videos, you'll notice that I rarely use viridian or burnt umber. I usually work from a set palette. It's really important to know when to be flexible and add or take away colours from this palette. This palette asked for something I didn't usually use. And the only reason I knew to reach for viridian was because I was looking hard at what was in front of me and asking myself what the colour actually needed. That is always the right question. Not what colours do I normally use, but what is this painting asking for? The more you paint, the more you trust that instinct, and the more you realise that the rules you set yourself are there to serve the painting, not the other way round. So if you're taking one thing away from this video, let it be this. Observe first, mix second. Your palette should follow your eye, not lead it. To sum up then, don't use brown straight from the tube. Every colour in nature leans either warm or cool. Brown is no different. Before you mix, ask yourself, is this brown warm or cool? Always paint what you see, not what you think you see. Try mixing complementary colours for your browns or adjusting a base colour like burnt umber. Use viridian for cooling down a warm brown without killing it, but use sparingly. Your palette is a tool, not a rule book. Let the painting tell you what it needs. If you would like to come and paint with me in oils, join my workshop on the 3rd of July. You'll find the link in the description below. There are also more details of lesson opportunities on my website sarahhallidayart.com. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss future painting tips. Thank you for watching and see you next week.